Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is for the Heartbreaker. Now this is a Kay Ascona pattern, and I've actually already done a couple tutorials on this pattern, but I just recently ordered from K&A Custom Fabrics and got one of their cut and sews. I do enjoy using cut and sews, and this one is their new one. It is a Heartbreaker. This is their first one. And it is the As You Wish. I am a huge fan of Princess Bride, and I knew I had to have this immediately. So this is a pebbled vinyl. You can see that's the back. This is going to be the front. Look at that design. We have the special connectors. This is our outer pieces. We have a gorgeous overlay here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the time off camera to cut out my exterior out of this pebbled vinyl. Let's look at the interior, which is going to be a canvas, a water resistant canvas, a little bit sturdier than a cotton canvas. So we have our lining pieces, and it has all kinds of these beautiful prints, quotes. Look at that lining. So this is how these cut and sews come. They come rolled up. I am going to take the time to cut everything out, and then I'll just come back after I cut everything out and we'll go over all the pieces for it. I got everything cut out, and we're just going to go over the pieces now. Now this main piece is going to be your piece A. This is going to be the front. This will be the back, and then you're going to have two A lining pieces like that. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I'm not putting any interfacing on any of the lining pieces, skipping that completely. It is a canvas, it's water resistant, and it has enough stability. Skipping the interfacing, or stabilizer I should say, on my exterior pieces. The vinyl is stable enough so that it will hold its shape. Everything is not stabilized with anything. I just cut everything out from the cut and sew and left it just like that. So that's your piece A. We'll get a slip pocket for the back. This is going to be for your exterior. You have both the print and the vinyl for the exterior and the lining for the slip pocket. Gorgeous, gorgeous print. I love this. Is probably my favorite print or piece from this cut and sew is this right here. You get so many connectors. So these will be the pieces that we'll use to make our connectors for our D-rings, for our crossbody, and our backpack. You also get two options for an overlay. I'm going to choose to do the heart one, but if you're someone's a little nervous about it and kind of worried about how it'll turn out, you could just use the plain one as well. You also have the lining for that zipper pocket for the inside. So your overlay will go on the inside as well as the zipper pocket. Then we have our gusset. This is going to be that main zipper opening all around the bag. This will be the bottom part of it, one exterior, one lining. And this will be the actual zipper gusset piece. So you'll have one of the exterior and one of the lining. And I do also have the zipper tape, which means I will have to have a zipper pull. Note that the pulls and the zipper do not come in the kit. You'll have to provide them yourself. You'll also need your hardware for your D-rings and a strap. I'll probably use webbing for mine and just make my strap off camera, but I'll probably just do a simple version with webbing, grab something that coordinates well with this and go with that. So those are all the pieces we need. We're going to start this by sewing up our slip pocket and by putting the D-ring connectors together. Put these D-ring connectors together. What you're going to do is you're just going to slip one of your D-rings on. And once you get it to the middle, you're just going to fold it together. I'm going to use a little bit of glue on mine like I like to do. You know, I don't like to use double-sided tape, but just because my machine gives me a little bit of grief, I prefer to use glue. So I'm just going to put a little bit. I have known from the past that some vinyls don't like glue. I have used glue on K&A vinyls and I don't have any problem, but I'll still be cautious just putting a little bit here. The pattern tells us that we can do a fake row of top stitching down this D-ring connector. That's not going to bother me. So I'm not going to do that at all. What I'm going to do is just fold these, and I'm just going to top stitch as close as I can to my D-ring connector. And then whenever I attach this to the actual gusset, then I will stitch around here, and I'll try my best to come at a heart shape to stitch that on. For this adorable little slip pocket, what you'll do is you'll take your exterior and your lining, and you're going to place them right sides together. Now we're just going to sew from one top edge all the way over to the other. So we're just doing the top part, just stopping right there where those curves end. I sewed the slip pocket together just at the top, and I also glued one of these. I have not top stitched there yet because I realized I needed to change my thread, so I wanted to show this step and then talk about how we're going to clip into here, and then I'll change my thread and top stitch all of those D-rings. So the pattern tells us we are going to make snips. So what we want to do is we want to try to get as close as we can in here without cutting into the stitches. I want to try to help this spread on this curve. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to start right there in the middle. That's where my starting point's going to be, and I'm going to go ahead and fold that part down and put a clip right there. And I'm going to start working on one side using my fingers in the back to push it through to get that curve to come out and look as smooth as possible. I think it looks great. Really pleased with how that looks. I'm going to go ahead and top stitch this because I have a tan thread, and I think that would look the best. And I will set these aside because I don't want to keep having to change the thread, so I'll wait on these, but I'll do this part first now. I am just going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away along that top edge. I'm going to go ahead and pull out my back A exterior piece. Keep your A right sides up. Lay your slip pocket down with that exterior right sides up. Add a few clips right along the bottom and the side. It will match up at the bottom and the side, of course, but not the top. And all we want to do now is just baste around here. When I baste, I just mean 1/8 of an inch. Typically, you can lengthen your stitch length if you want, but I'll leave mine the same. So looking over the pattern, it does look as if the pieces for the backpack are typically added straight to the back. I wanted to do the slip pocket for sure. Now I could add these pieces on, but I feel like it'll just take away a little bit from this pocket, so I'm going to choose not to. I want to go over a little bit how you would use these if you were doing it in your bag. You would fold the connectors to the middle here, just those raw edges, and you could stitch down them if you wanted to, but basically after you had them folded, you would put the D-ring on there, and then you would attach it to the top. You can see with mine that it would be like right up against there, which is fine. It would work. I'm just not going to do it. So you would have, and the pattern tells you where to place this, but you would have one here and one here. That would be for these connectors. Then you would kind of do the same thing for this loop. You would fold it in. And then with this one though, you would sew it together, and then you would shift that. Let me show you. You would sew it just like this, the raw edges together, sew there. But then you would shift that seam so that it was in the middle. So the seam would be like in the middle there after you did that, and then you would attach it on to this. I'm not doing those steps, but I did just kind of want to talk about it. I'm just going to keep this as a crossbody, but just know that this cut and sew gives you those pieces to use so that you can have the backpack crossbody, whichever option you want, or both. That the next step for us will be to work on our D-ring connectors and our gusset. So I'm going to go off camera, add the glue to all of mine, and then I will change the thread and I'll top stitch across here, and I will talk about where we're going to place these onto the gusset. I have the marks made on my gusset according to the pattern measurements. The pattern does tell us that the left side will be a little bit further away from the short end of the gusset. So now that I have those two top stitched there at the top, what I want to do is I want to center one of these directly on that line. So here's the line, and I want it to be just like this. So I'll have it just like that is the way I want to do it. And I'm going to add just a little bit of glue again, just to kind of stabilize that. So while I'm sewing it, it's not shifting around. You could pull your threads to the back if you wanted to, but I'm just going to back stitch once here. And I'm thinking about even adding a rivet to the center of this just to kind of help it be a little more secure after I'm finished sewing it. Now it's time for me to kind of dip down a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and shorten my stitch length to about a 3. The reason why I'm doing that is that it'll give me a little bit more control when I'm trying to do this curve, so that it might look a little bit nicer. And right here is that point, so I want my point to be right there as well. Just a very small dip. I'm not going to try to be too dramatic with it. Definitely off center. You can see it should be over a little bit more, so you'll probably want to mark your center there, but it's okay, not horribly bad. It gives you the illusion of a heart. So I'm going to cut that thread. I'm going to put a rivet in the center and then repeat this on the other side, and that will be the attaching of the connectors to the gusset. I have both of the connectors attached, and I also added the rivets. So now it's time to start working on the zipper part to get this ready to attach to the bag. So I'm going to take the lining zipper gusset, place it right sides up. I'm going to take my zipper and I'm going to place it right sides up. Then I'll just baste this in place all along this long edge. So now that I have the zipper attached to the lining, then it's easier for me to go ahead and add in that gusset. Now I do know that I want one side to be the left, but that doesn't matter yet how I add this gusset because I don't have the zipper pull on. So I can go ahead and sew this however I want, and then just make sure I add the zipper pull the way I need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and match up the short edges and the long edge and add a few clips to clip this in place. I'm going to make sure on this one that whenever I start sewing, those short edges are aligned and I get that full seam allowance. I'll definitely want to back stitch when I start and stop. What it's time to do is to go ahead and top stitch. So I will pull these wrong sides together, and then I like to go ahead and baste the raw edges together before I top stitch along the zipper. I just feel like I get a better top stitch when I do it this way. Definitely can do whatever preference you want on that step, but this is the way I'm going to do it for me. So I like my zipper pulls to always close to the left, so I'm just going to go ahead and add on the zipper pull to the left side. We're going to go ahead and add that bottom panel. You should have 2 of those, an exterior and a lining. You're just going to sew this on the same way you would do any other gusset. Lay the bottom part of the lining, lay it right sides up. Take your zipper gusset and just lay it directly on top. And so the lining will be right sides together with that lining. And you can see it matches it perfectly. Take that exterior piece, lay it right sides down. And we'll add a few clips here and just sew this with the seam allowance given the pattern. After you get that sewed on, let's go ahead and flip the exterior and the lining so that they are wrong sides together. Kind of pull it a little bit so you can get a nice top stitch here. And let's just top stitch on the bottom part, not on the zipper gusset part, just about 1/8 of an inch away from that seam you just sewed. Now what we need to do is we need to sew this part the same way to this side. It's a little tricky. So what I like to do first is I like to put the exteriors together first. So have those right sides together, and then I just baste it in place. And so that way when I add the lining, I have less chance of everything shifting. Now that you have that exterior base in place, you're going to have to take this lining piece and it's going to have to go all the way over here. So it can be like kind of confusing to how you can do it. There's several ways. You can roll this up really tight and get it to go that way and just pull it around. You can see everything else is kind of tucked, smushed in there. Lots of times also, I can even pull this out if it's too bulky. As long as I have it lined up and I know I'm doing it correct, it's okay. It doesn't matter if this other part is looking weird, as long as I'm attaching the unsewn edge of that lining bottom gusset to the unsewn edge of the zipper panel with the proper seam allowance, I'm good. Now that we have that sewn together, we should have a complete loop, and what we need to do is just top stitch the other side, and I'm also going to baste that small portion of the bottom gusset so that it's all one piece as well. So what I'll do is I'll start sewing down the long side of that bottom gusset, or I think it's longer. They're pretty much about the same. But I'll start sewing down here to base that, and then top stitch across that other edge where we just sewed, and then baste that other edge again. So I'm basting here just to close it up so it's all one piece. I'm going to top stitch across this edge just to finish that seam. Then we're going to baste again down this other edge. If you have any overhang, you can trim that off, but you probably won't. It's a very good fit. So this is going to be the bottom part. That's going to be where the peak of the heart is going to be, or that point of the heart. This is going to be your top, where the dip will go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find those marks of the center for the point and the center for the dip. Put some clips right there. So all I'm doing is matching up that seam there at the bottom. So pushing that seam together. You can use, make little snips. You can use a marking tool, whatever you want. Since I have that there, I will come down to the other side, and this will be the center mark for where it'll go in that dip, right in the middle of that dip. What I want to do is go ahead and pull out a lining piece, and I want to attach a zipper, and definitely make sure you use the pattern measurements how you place it. I will first go around and make sure, let me make sure it's centered and looks good. I'm kind of just eyeballing this. But what I want to do for sure is I'm going to go ahead and pull these threads long. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew all the way around the perimeter of this box, including where the heart is. That means I'm going to go all the way around here first. I will come back and do that extra addition of stitching there, but I want to make for sure I have it completely attached here, and then I will sew around the heart. So you can see I'm going to go straight across here. Now also to note, I did not cut out this little empty space there. I knew it would be tricky, and I felt like with my cutting skills it would be like look better to leave it white, but technically you should cut that out. I just chose not to. If your cutting skills are better than mine, definitely go ahead and cut out that white space. I'm never a perfect stitcher, but I don't care. It looks fine to me. So now what I'll do is I'll trim up my threads, and then I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to cut this lining all around the back here of this box on the inside of the box. I will not get too close to the stitches. I'll stay about 1/8 of an inch away. So I have the box completely cut out. So here's that zipper pocket lining piece. So I'm going to cut mine into 2 pieces so that I can do it the way I prefer to do it. I'm going to go ahead and cut the top so that it is a little bit longer to account for the extra distance it has to come down. So hopefully I won't have too much loss whenever I'm attaching this to the zipper pocket. I'm not going to add the pull first, but I'm going to start with one of the zipper pocket lining pieces, have it right sides up, have my zipper tape right sides up, and then I'm just going to sew this on. And since I'm doing mine a little bit differently, I'm going to tell you the seam allowance. I'm just going to sew it on with about 1/4 of an inch. So now that I have that attached, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the two, fold back the zipper tape, and then just attach it to the top with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And this just kind of connects it and makes it a little bit easier for me to add it into that overlay opening I have. So this is what I have. We're looking at the wrong side of the lining, but the right side of the zipper. I'm going to show you the reason why I do that is that way I can just lay this on here and it'll just be a little bit of a flat, smooth finish for me to sew around. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and flip up this other lining piece, and I'm going to match up the unsewn edge of the zipper to the top of that, matching up the long edge across the top here, and then also this side edge. Again, I'm going to sew that now with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this pocket just like I did the last time and tack down that edge of the zipper and the seam allowance at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. One of my pieces is shorter than the other, so I'm going to flip it around so that longer is on top. I'm going to add the zipper pull so that it closes to the left. I want the longer piece on top, so when I fold it down, it will not be as far off as the bottom, so I won't have to cut off as much. So now that I have that zipper pull on, I'm going to leave it kind of in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and pull out this lining. So what I want to do is I want to have that lining kind of evenly spaced on this zipper pocket overlay. So you want about the same amount overhang on each end. All I do is I slide it straight over the machine. I do not add any clips or anything like that. I am going to start stitching just a little bit away from this corner because whenever I turn the corner, I want just a few stitches to be able to help get myself on track if I'm not on track, if I'm not lining up evenly. You can pull your threads along here, or you can just back stitch, whatever is your preference. So that's how that looks. I'm going to come over to the back. I'm going to flip it down. Matches up perfectly. I did a great job with that one. So now what we're going to do is we are going to just add some clips here at the top. And I know that I'm going to have to do some trimming here. You can see the shape of the heart, we would be outside of the seam allowance. I'm not too worried about getting it perfectly inside the seam allowance because I'm not going to have a lot of bulk here, but I definitely want to make for sure that I'm able to sew up enough to close up that zipper box. So that's the main thing for me, is getting it a little bit close to the edge there. Pull out my good scissors and let's just do a little bit of trimming. Okay, so now I have it trimmed down, but I still have enough room to get my foot on the sides here without being too close. You want to make for sure, definitely give yourself enough clearance. We're going to sew those 3 sides and close up this zipper completely. We do not need to burr through this zipper opening because we are binding this bag, so just go ahead and close up your zipper. I like to sew it from the right side, so I flip it over here. I'll pull back that lining and get right up against that edge there and just back stitch really well. I'll usually go over the zipper teeth and go back down just to kind of help make sure that that zipper won't pop through when people are opening and closing it. Again, if you want to trim some more off, you can. Not too big of a deal there. But then you'll go ahead and you're going to pull out all your pieces. We can go ahead and start attaching everything together now. I'm going to choose to have this zipper pocket against my exterior front. And then since there's already some extra bulk on the back, I will use the lining without anything on it. Of course, if you wanted, you could add another slip pocket or zipper pocket onto either one of these. That would be fine. What you want to do is you want to have your lining and your exterior wrong sides together. You are just going to clip around there and then base this entire thing so these are all one piece. I'm going to be basting around the 1/8 of an inch away just to make for sure that those stitches will not show in the final sewing of this bag. And we will attach both the front and the back exterior and linings this way. I have the exterior and the linings both attached. I don't really need to mark centers here because I can see a center there, I can tell a center here. Not too big of a deal. What I do want to make for sure is that I make for sure that this is the left. I want that to end up over here. So I'm going to make sure I take my time to do that. I want the zipper against the front. So this zipper edge will be against the front here. This will be against the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera, take my time to clip everything in place, matching it right sides together. So the right side of the gusset will be against the right side of the exterior. I'll come back to show you what it looks like when it's clipped, and then we will sew it together, and I will tell you some of the ways that I have found that makes it a little bit easier to sew this. I have everything clipped around and it looks great. Fits perfectly. You can see from the inside everything looks good. Here it is from the outside, or the lining side I should say. Now I'm going to sew this with the lining against the bed of my machine. I have made several of these, and I typically glue, especially right here. I usually glue it down. I'm not going to try that this time. I'm going to see if I can sew without it and just keep that proper seam allowance and everything first. What I will do though is I'm going to use a stiletto. If this one's not holding good enough, I'll actually get out my seam ripper to hold the zipper in place. The problem you're going to have is your zipper will tend to want to slip. Your zipper is straight, you're sewing in some pretty steep curves. If you're someone who likes to use staples, glue, hand basting, whatever, this is a great pattern to do it on because it will make it a little bit easier. I'm going to try to risk it and see if I can work it out. If I can't, I will stop. I'll add the glue. I'll do whatever I need to get a nice finish, but I'm just going to try this way first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just baste around with 1/8 of an inch. That will be my first thing. I will come back when I add my binding and get the full seam allowance. I'm also going to start like right here on this side. So once I get around these curves, that's the hardest part. I want to start here, not just like, oh, get the hardest part out of the way, but so I have the least amount of shifting right here to get that really nice curve. That's important. Down at the bottom, I can handle it being a little off, but I really want this curve to stay nice here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten everything down, and you can see it's already starting to shift there. So I'm going to come down to this edge, push everything out of the way, kind of wiggle that foot underneath there, and find a spot where I can set my foot down. I'm going to press that zipper flat. I'm not worried about this up here because I'm not to that point yet. I'm just looking right here. If this is in line, I'm good to go, and I'm going to continue on. I definitely want a back stitch here. We do not want any of these stitches to come out. Once we get this hard work done, we want it to stay. So you can see I want to keep that zipper, or at least I hope you can see that I want to keep that zipper completely in line with the edge of that gusset. I'm going to keep my clips in place until I absolutely have to take them out. With this one shifting, I'm going to have to use either my hemostats. So what I'll do is I'll grab that zipper, pull it. Even if I just get a couple stitches, that's fine. Go those couple stitches. Do not stitch over it. Of course, it's metal break. And then grab it and pull it again. The only way to avoid this slipping is if you would use staples or glue or hand basting, anything like that. Otherwise, it'll probably continue to slip just because, like I said, the zipper is straight. It's kind of stiff. Not a lot of slip in zipper tape. It's not very stretchy is what I mean. And you're going around these curves and it just wants to kind of move. It's the nature of the material. You see by me just barely grabbing and pulling, I'm able to keep it in line. Once I get this basting stitch all the way down, whenever I go and add the binding, I won't have to go this low. It'll be already established that, you know, this tape to the vinyl, and I'll be good to go. I'm seeing some puckering here. I'm going to try to smooth that out. I definitely don't want that. I'm actually not feeling too bad about this. I was thinking I would have to stop and glue maybe, but actually it's going really well. We'll see how it looks at the end. But I'm not having any problems using just the hemostats, and it is making it, like it goes a lot quicker than adding the glue to everything. So I like this method. Okay, coming into this dip's a little tricky because my hand, I'm having a little trouble with where to get my hand, things like that. So I'm going to drop the hemostats and just use my stiletto and just kind of poke it down, go very, very slow. This part really is important to have looking nicely. Okay, we're out of the dip. We're back into this curve. I'm going to grab these hemostats again. Just kind of pull that edge up. Okay, now that we're out of those curves, we're pretty much good now at this point. I feel really good about how it went. Now, I'm not going to show you all the other steps. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to add whatever preferred bonding you want to use, whether it's waterproof canvas, whether it's fold over elastic, whether you use double fold tape, bias tape, or just regular tape, whichever way. You're going to sew around it the same way. It'll be easier with the binding now that you've already got this kind of secured and established. You'll just make sure you do your full seam allowance. Then you will do the same thing by attaching the back right sides together with that gusset again. So I won't show all those steps just to save some time. I will come back once I have everything all sewn together, and then we will turn out our Heartbreaker and see how we did. So that basting stitch is done and it looks really good. I have a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it out so we can just kind of see what it looks like. That looks great. We have a little bit of bunching here, which I'll take care of it, but you can see that's a little bit bulky there. Curve looks good. You can still see my basting stitches, of course, because I haven't sewn with the full seam allowance. I think this looks great. I am very pleased with how it's looking. I'm going to go ahead and flip it back, add the binding, and sew around with the full seam allowance, and then do the same exact steps for the back, and then we'll be done. I have everything sewn, binding on both sides. Last thing to do is to turn it. I have not made my strap yet, but like I said, I'm just going to use webbing and do a quick strap after the end of that. The bag opens really wide, so it's not hard to really turn at all. That's such a great design. So cute. Definitely going to need to do some shaping with my clips and trimming up of some threads. I definitely have threads hanging out for my basting stitches. Let me get that propped up and make sure it is all in camera. Oh my gosh, it looks so good. Now, I'm not perfect with sewing that. I actually see a couple basting stitches here that I'll need to remove, and the curve is pretty good. My zipper tape's a little loose here, but that's completely fine. Sewing up a heart, I don't expect perfection. What I will do now is I will clip, trim up my threads and everything, and then it is completely done. This is the Heartbreaker. This pattern is from K. Ascona Designs. I used a cut and sew from K&A Custom Fabrics. This is on pre-order right now. It is gorgeous, super cute, and as you can see, it does not take long to get put together. It is not as hard as you would think. So here is the back. I do need to add some clips around my edges to kind of smooth that out. My back doesn't look as good as my front, which I expect because it's a little harder to get a perfect fit. But after I clip all this around, it'll smooth out too. I'll go back inside and I'll push out these seams and add my clips and leave it there, and it'll be great there as well. Or I shouldn't say great, it will be good. It will be something I will be pleased about. You can see my little connectors on the side are so cute. Love those connectors on the side. But this cut and sew does make the sewing of this Heartbreaker bag a lot easier, a lot more convenient. Super cute prints. Love it so much. So I want to thank you guys for watching another one of my tutorials, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any tutorials you'd like to see me do, just let me know. Other than that, I hope you have a great day today sewing something beautiful and fun from your childhood as well. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.